Welcome to The Road Less Traveled with Tiffany Rosenbaum. This podcast is about sharing the success and failure of entrepreneurs. Join in and learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to go through the same hardships in business. Now let's welcome your host, business coach, real estate investor, and proud wife and mom, Tiffany Rosenbaum.
Welcome back to another episode of the Road Less Travel. We are excited to have Amy Hanson on and continue to chat about the journey of getting into property management, selling a property management company, but not only one, but two. So we welcome you back and we appreciate you being on today, Amy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No,
It's always fun to talk about the world of property management.
Right? Well, as we talked on the computer, like on our meeting about a week ago, I was really intrigued because there's not usually very many people that not only get into property management, but then sell a property management company, but then decide to get back into property management and then sell it again. So, can you give our viewers and listeners a small, like 2-minute, 1 minute, 10,000-foot overview of why you first got into property management and then selling the first and then deciding to go back in and then selling the second? Just a quick snippet and then we'll deep dive into it.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I started out as a realtor and I had been a realtor for many years and I had been working for a relocation company out of Phoenix, Arizona. And I was just tired of the corporate world. I was ready to get back into residential management. And so the opportunity came up for me to buy a real estate company. So this was in 2006. It was a real estate company that I had previously worked for. And I bought it. I was so excited. I thought, oh, this is going to be just so much fun. I had no idea that they had a property management division. I had no idea that they were even doing property management. It was kind of an after the fact, oh, you bought a real estate company and guess what? Bonus, you get a property management company too. So that's how I ended up in property management to begin with. And at first I thought, oh, well, how hard can this be? All you do is collect rent. It can't be that difficult. This is going to be easy peasy. And then I found out what I didn't know, which was there's a lot to owning a property management company. But I found that there's a lot of wonderful things about owning a property management company, including the ability to generate an amazing amount of revenue off of a property management company. And so grew it and developed it. And then one day in 2016, somebody came along unsolicited and said, hey, you've got a great system there. I want to buy it. And I sold it. And I was in San Antonio at the time. And that required, when I did my sale, I had a do not compete. And so I decided to move. I moved to Dallas and I thought, oh, okay, well, I'm not quite ready to retire. So maybe I'll, manage a few doors here and there and see how it goes. And the next thing I know, here we go. I've got 250 doors again. So it kind of all just ballooned faster than I had ever anticipated. And so I got another unsolicited offer to purchase the company in March of 2025. So I sold about a year ago to Berkshire Hathaway PenFed Realty. So that is the 10,000 foot view of how we ended up here today. I think it's a lot of fun. I think, I kind of think of it as buying, selling, starting over. There's a lot of pros and cons to running the second business after you've learned from all the experiences and the mistakes of running the first business. So
I love that you brought this up, and I did not know that you bought into a company to get into it. So I actually I'm going to transition just a little bit here because you learned not only from acquiring, but then you sold and had someone else acquire you, then you got back in and then you sold again. So from the very first time you got into the business, buying one,
yes.
What do you wish you would have known?
I really thought in 2006 that real estate companies were the key to the future. And I thought if I could own a brick and mortar real estate company, this is going to be it. And I didn't realize how hard it is to run a real estate company, how quickly agents move in and out of companies. It's very hard to sustain that productivity level. so completely different than property management. And so, having not known anything about property management at the time, they had gotten into it by accident. And one house becomes two, and then 10, and then 20. San Antonio is a huge military market, and the owners of the company were prior military, and so they had some people say, hey, I can't sell my house, or I'm not ready to sell my house. Can you just watch it for me for a year or two? And so they started out just doing the basics. And a little bit later on in the career, I got involved at the Realtor Association, and I found out there's an entire committee of people that do this. And then I found NARPM and people that knew how to run property management companies. It opened my eyes to a whole new business model. So, but when I bought it, I inherited 90 doors, and I inherited what they had been doing for all of those years. A lot of it was paper and pencil, or as
Oh
I
my
like to
goodness.
tease, tablet and chisel. We didn't
Wow.
have any real
I
software. We
know,
didn't
not back
have
then.
we didn't have owner portals and tenant portals. We literally would have all of our tenants come into the office every month and pay their rent in person, or they would bring us a stack of checks. Those were my favorite ones. They would bring us a stack of checks, and we would keep them in a drawer, and every month we would pull out the next month's check. And then when it was time to pay the owners, we had a stack of their deposit slips, and we would drive around from bank to bank, putting their proceeds into their bank
Oh,
account for them. I
oh,
mean, what a
I remember
wild
those days.
way to
So,
run a property management
y-
company.
yeah, very wild. So when you bought into it though, do you feel like they valued that side of the business at all?
Not
Or
at
you,
all. It was completely accidental. It was an accidental property management company, just like we deal
wow.
with accidental landlords now. They had, a person had come along and said, "Hey, can you collect rent for me?" And then they got a couple more and a couple of more. They never had any intention of going into the property management business. And it was seen as, hey, this is a great way to kind of cover some of the bills each month.
Mm,
But the real estate agents were where their focus was. The real estate agents is really where they were putting all of their time, effort, and energy. And then 2008 happened. And when 2008 happened and the economy collapsed and the real estate market collapsed, all of a sudden, wow, we have this little property management group over here. We could actually make some money if we really got our act together and made this a business. And so
is
that's
that
when
when you
things
would
really
say,
changed.
yeah, is that when you say would say that you go, oh, and you really started to look at the property management company as a business in
Yes.
2008? So
Yes,
when you
absolutely.
decided that that was a business and you were going to go forward with it, where did you grow that business before someone approached you? How many units were you?
So when I bought the company, we were at 90 doors. And when I was approached, we were at 250 doors. So it was quite the turn of
Wow.
events. In between that 90 doors and that 250 doors, we discovered software. We discovered owner portals and tenant portals and online payments and online maintenance. We also discovered that we really needed to have some policies and some procedures in place in order to be able to run the business so that we could have a policy and a process for every tenant and every owner as we would onboard them. And so when I was approached, they loved the fact that we had 250 doors. That was great. But what they really wanted was the systems behind it. They said, you've got the software, you've got the systems, you've got the checklists, you've got the programs in place to really run this and run it at a high level and run it at a profitable level. One of the big things I found interesting in my beginning years of property management is people said, "Oh, you do property management like it was a side hustle hobby, right?"
Yeah.
Like this is something that really can make money, and it is a for-profit business. We are in the business to make money, to be
100%.
profitable. And if you're running your company and it's not profitable, well, something's wrong because property management companies can be extremely profitable if they're run correctly.
If they're run correctly, I think is
Yes.
the key word there. Now, a question for you. I'm going to move back just a tad. How did they approach you and how did they find you the first sell? Because you said you didn't know about them. They approached you. Like what happened in that? How did they find you?
I had a number of people contact me over the years, and as the broker of record, as the owner broker, I had people call a lot of times from franchises. Hey, we're looking to expand into your area. Would you like to sell your real estate company? Would you like to sell your property management company? Most of the companies in now this is in 2016, most of those companies did not want to buy a real estate company. They only wanted to buy a real estate a property management company. And so I had some friends from NARPM, and we actually were having lunch one day, and I said, "Hey, the craziest thing happened. Somebody actually called me that wants to buy both the property management and the real estate side, which was unusual." And they said, "Oh, well, we think you're running a fantastic ship. You've got it all figured out. You've got your systems and your processes. We would love to be able to buy that so we could incorporate that into our property management company." And so it came up over lunch that the company was never advertised, it was never marketed. We didn't go out and put it on the market for sale. It was a couple of friends having lunch saying, "Hey, I got this offer, this crazy offer." And they said, "Hey, if you decide to sell, I'll buy it." And I was like, "Really?" And they said, "Yeah, I'll buy the whole thing." I said, "Okay, let's do this." I never even thought about it. I had purchased the company from some people that were retiring. I was 44 at the time. And I thought, well, I'll just be here till I'm 65 or 70 or whatever. That's what property managers do, right? We go to property management to stay there till we retire. And then this opportunity came along and I said, wow, maybe I should take it. Maybe this might be the only opportunity I have to do this, and I could do something totally different, like move and start a new property management company.
So I have a
Um,
question there because you had said no to quite a few. It
yes.
wasn't the first. And walk us through that. Why did you say no to all the others? What was the defining thing? No, it's not a good fit.
Yeah, most of the time they really only wanted the property management side. Now, I was still running a full service brokerage. I had 30 something agents, I had
Wow.
staff, I had office space, I had HOA accounts. I mean, it was not just, hey, here's this little property management group of, managing 250 doors. It was a big, octopus, sales and leasing and agents, and we also had some corporate space that we rented next door, some corporate office space. So it was a pretty big monster. And when somebody came along and said, "Hey, I'll take the entire monster," I was like, "Well, okay, let's see what we could do here."
But what's interesting about this, someone called you and said, "Hey, I'll take the whole thing." But then you went to lunch with a friend and they were like, "Wait, wait, wait, can I have the opportunity?"
Yeah,
Now, walk me through that. Why did you decide to go with a friend over someone that called you? The reason why I ask is sometimes when you get in bed with friends, it can get nasty if you're
that's
not
true.
careful, right?
That's
So,
true.
how did you decide what was the deciding factor on those two? Because they were same offers pretty much, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why did you decide to go with the one you decide with?
Well, they had been in the property management space already. So they were going to be expanding their property management portfolio by doing this. And we had a relationship. I had known this person for years. And so, it was very comfortable to me to say, "Hey, if you want to buy it, I would rather sell it to someone who knows property management, understands it, values property management." I mean, it's a gift, and it was my baby that I was selling because I had grown it and developed it and changed it and made it into this, profitable business opportunity that somebody actually wanted. The other company, the original offer that I had was from a real estate company, but they did not know anything about property management. I mean,
Okay,
they
now
were
that scared me a little bit.
completely not even green. They had never even touched property management. So
That could
um,
get messy real quick. Let's
that
be
could get
honest. You
messy
and I both
too.
know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So what, I mean, you had offers, you've said no to some, you said yes to pretty much one, but you had two offers that were similar. But you were 44. Like in reality, what intrigued you to sell?
I hadn't really given it a whole lot of thought. Um, and it was kind of the right place, the right time. I had other people talk to me before, "Hey, we'd like to buy this or buy that." And I was like, yeah, it wasn't the right thing. But I had some changes going on in my personal life. My son was going off to college. And so it just kind of everything like lined up. Had I had, started out, and said, hey, this year I'm going to go sell my property management company and tried to line up everything to be perfect. I don't know that it would have ever happened, but all of the stars kind of aligned. I was involved with the Realtor Association. I was on the board of directors. My term was coming to an end. I was involved in some volunteering. Those terms were coming to an end. Some changes in my personal life were coming to an end. My son moving. So it just everything just kind of came together at once, and it was the right person on the right day. And we've all had those really crummy days at work, right? We've all had that day where we said, if somebody offered me 50 cents today, they could have it all. I am out of here.
I only
Um,
laugh because I think everybody's been through that, and it's like I want to throw my computer against the wall. I just want to walk out. But
yeah, yeah, today is the day. So somebody offered me the right amount of money on the right day, and I was like, this could be cool. I'll tell you what though, completely different experiences. When I bought that company, like I said, everything on paper. We're still mailing out statements. We're collecting rent manually. The people are coming into the office, the whole brick and mortar, totally different than what I built the second time around.
Mhm.
It is,
100%.
they don't even look like the same kind of companies. They don't even look like we're in the same industry from what I had to what I have now. Now I am grateful. I am grateful that I was able to buy a established company and learn from them and learn how to do it on paper, on pencil, the hard way. And it was hard. I mean, we were there, doing statements until midnight on the first, second, and third of the month. I mean, that's what you did. You stayed in the office collecting rent till 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. That was just the way we did it.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for all of that. But boy, I love the technology and some of the things that we have in place now that we're able to utilize.
Oh, you
I
and me
in
both.
Yeah, when I bought it in 2006, I bought it all as one. It was all one P&L. I had a real estate company and a property management company all merged in together
Oh,
and mixed all together. So that made it difficult to sell them separate in the future. I
and to
I
see
wanted to
it.
sell them together,
Yeah.
but that was a big lesson learned out of buying that and working that is that, to do it over again, keeping it separate, keeping the property management separate if I'm going to continue to do real estate and keep the real estate separate. Um,
Okay. So,
that was a
okay.
big
So
lesson
you,
learned.
yeah, there's a lot learned. So, for instance, you sold to a friend pretty much.
Hmm.
Everything aligned the first time. It was just all the stars aligned. What intrigued you to sell the second time? I mean, it's not just once, it's two.
I
And that's
know
like
it's
very rare.
crazy.
So, and you're still very, very young. So why was it, and you're working, let's name this what it is. You're still working in the business, which is a whole nother factor, which is very intriguing to me. But why did you say, okay, it's time to sell again
Yeah.
in Dallas?
So when I sold the first time, the agreement was that I would stick around for 6 months and help with a transition, which I did. And then, of course, I had the do not compete. So I moved and I moved to Dallas. And my goal really when I moved up here was, I mean, I had money from the sale, I had money from other investments and stuff. I didn't really need a job, but I was too young to retire. So I thought, hey, if I could just manage like, 50 doors, then I could do that part time for the next 15, 20 years. It'd give me something to do, keep me from wandering the streets. And in the first year, I had 100 doors. I was like, what has happened here? This is just crazy. But I thought, well, I'm going to do this for a few years, and then maybe one of my kids will want to take over the company. Both of my kids work in the company. My husband works in the company. And I thought, okay, well, this will be something that I'll pass on to them. I'll let them take over, sell it, etc. It'll stay in the family. And the kids were like, Mom, no way, no how. Like it took an arm twisting to get them to work with me, but neither one of them wanted to own the business. They said that they felt that watching me work the business over the years that it's pretty hard to walk away. And I don't think people understand that when they start building a property management company. You can't just on Friday go, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm out of here. Here's my 2 weeks notice. It doesn't work that way. You can't just turn it off or shut it down. You have a responsibility to these accounts and these owners and these tenants. And it takes a process. So I knew, okay, well, I've been here now 10 years in this second company. I thought, well, maybe in 10 or 15 years, one of the kids would take it. And the kids were like, Mom, no, 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 no. So I had a call from a friend and they said they were buying another company, not mine, and they needed some help. They wanted to know if I'd give them a little consultation on the buying and selling since I had done it. What do you look for? What are the pitfalls? How do you set it up? How do you pay for it? How do you structure it? How do you value it? I mean, all those questions. So we sat down, we started talking about it, and they said something that I thought was extremely smart because I've talked to a lot of people about this over the years. They said, Amy, we really, really, really want to do this, but we don't know anything about property management. We've got to have somebody that can run it. And that's the piece. That is the key
Yes.
piece of this second deal. So they said, would you be interested in it? I was like, why would I do that? Why would I do that? But I'm still not quite ready to retire. So
Yep.
they said, hey, what if we worked out a deal? You come on board, we'll buy your doors. You can still keep your real estate stuff on the side because I still have real estate investments. I still buy and sell. But we'll buy all your doors, and then you can teach us how to do it. And you can be our VP of property management for all of Texas. Come on board, show us all the systems, show us how it all works, show us how to run this business, and we'll pay you to do that too. So I was like, wow, this is kind of like hitting the lottery here. So again, it was the right place at the right time. The business wasn't on the market, it wasn't for sale. I hadn't talked to anybody about selling it. It was just the right conversation on the right day. And I think that's a huge piece of it. I have been very, very involved in the real estate industry and the property management industry for years and years and years. And people go, well, how did you do it? How did you find something to buy or to sell? You're not going to sit on your couch at home and people are going to show up and say, hey, I want to buy your doors. Or I want to sell your doors. You have to get out there and make those arrangements and make those connections with people. And people have to know where you are in your journey. And if they know, hey, I'm looking to retire in 10 or 15 years, okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's make a plan. Maybe we can work together on it. So
I love
it's
that. Like
crazy.
I love that you just said like communication be out there, but also it doesn't mean it happens today when you talk to them. It might be 10 or 15 years out, but you're already building the relationship. So, Amy, you went through two of these, okay? So you asked questions on the first one. What questions do you ask on the second ones to the buyers that were different from the first ones because you knew more?
Well, it was very hard to sell the first baby because that was my baby. And it was very hard to see any, I had encouraged them to keep things the same for, 6 months to a year, let them, kind of percolate on it and get to know it before making any changes. And so, seeing so many drastic changes that took place after I left was hard for me. Because it's hard to see your baby change.
100%.
On the second round, this time I'm still running the baby. It's still my baby. They're allowing me to continue to run it as I did before. And to teach them how to do it. I mean, we've had unbelievable growth. We've got unbelievable opportunities and the revenue streams that we have set up. And so, one of the things that I absolutely loved about the second sale was, Amy, we know you know what you're doing. We're not going to ask you to change what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing and let's make it better together. And that was really different for me.
Yeah, that's
Um,
very different because that's
yeah.
not usually how sales go. And that's a very unique situation. Like, very unique, actually. And that was their idea. That wasn't yours, that was
That
theirs.
was their idea. And I said, okay. And I was a little nervous. I'm going to tell you, I went from, I hadn't had a boss in 20 years. I'm like, I'm going to have a boss? Like, I got to turn in a time card. I got to get a review at the end of the year. Like, oh no, all this corporate stuff. But but they were, it takes the right people, putting the right people together. And because they were so clear about, we love what you're doing and we want to just help you make it better. We don't want to make you change what you're doing. We don't want to change what you're offering to your clients and customers. It's obviously working. Why would we want to change it? So I think that's what really helped me be able to say, okay, yes, I'm ready to do this again. And it's been a year. It was a year this month last year
Congrats.
that we I can't believe it's been a year already. And they have
And
been
you
true to
seem
their
really
word.
happy. Like,
I am
I
really
mean,
happy.
you're a team member, someone you're teaching someone, and it doesn't always happen that way. That's why it was so intriguing when we talked to you the first time, because I'm like, hey, that it doesn't always happen that way. It just
Yeah.
doesn't. So
Well, they did say I would have to find my replacement at some point. So at some point I will retire. I'm going to have to find someone to fill my shoes. But it definitely did lift a burden of, what do I do with this when I am ready to retire? Okay, I want to give you my 6 months notice and I'm going to retire and I'm really truly going to get out of the property management business.
you're
Now I
gonna do
have
it
that
a third time,
opportunity.
Amy. You're gonna do it a third time, not just two. You're gonna do a third time. So, what are some mistakes you made on the first transaction
Hmm.
that you
Well,
learned from, and so the second one's going so much better? What were some mistakes you kind of made, if you don't mind sharing with us?
sure, of course, of course. And it can be hard to work with friends. That can make it more difficult. It can be hard to work with strangers too.
That's
So,
true.
there's pros and cons there. So some of the things that I learned when you're dealing with real estate, I thought that when I sold the company, the first time I just sold the entire company, assets, liabilities, the whole thing. They got the whole deal. The second time, I only sold the accounts for goodwill. So, two
Mhm.
totally different types of sales.
Yes.
But the first time when I sold, I didn't realize that there might still be some liabilities going forward for real estate. And when it comes to buying and selling properties, having the right E&O insurance, errors and omissions insurance, and having the right kind of tail policies if something comes up 2, 3, 4, 5 years later is really critical. We had a situation that came up a year or two after I sold the company and didn't realize that the new E&O insurance was not going to cover
Okay.
the situation. So making sure that you've got the right E&O insurance, you've got the right tail coverage was a huge lesson learned. The other lesson learned was when it comes to documentation. We had tons of documentation on all of the financials regarding the company. But when I sold, I didn't have any access to any of that anymore. So when the IRS wanted certain documentation years later, still within their 5 or 7 year time frame, they said, "Hey, we want to see these documents or those documents," especially when it comes to how we documented the sale. It was hard to find those documents. Those documents were no longer available, and so that made it extremely difficult. So I determined if I ever sold again, I would make sure I took copies of all the records with me just in case I needed to access those or have those as a reference point going forward. So two really big financial lessons learned, because if you don't have the right insurance, you end up having to pay out of pocket if something goes wrong. Even if you're in the right, even if you did everything right, people can still sue you for a variety of things years after transactions close. So
I
those
love that
were,
you brought that up, Amy, because I don't think people they get into this kind of excitement and they forget reality. I hate to say that, but everybody's like, "Oh, I'm going to sell," or "Oh, I'm about to buy," and then all of a sudden they're not thinking what can happen 10 years down the road. And I love that you brought up those two things because I think those are vital. Vital. Documentation. If you're selling the entire company, you have to take the documentation because not only on any type of real estate or anything, you have to keep documents for 5 years, depending on what state, but IRS can come back 7 years. And
yep.
then
Mhm.
I love that you brought up tel insurance because a lot of people in the industry don't know what tel insurance is. Like it covers you after a sale like that. So I think it's incredibly important. Insurance, documentation, make sure if you're giving someone your software that you bring that data with you, that documentation, and then insurance. I love that you brought that up because on the second one, you're still part of them, but I'm guessing that what you said, that now you're going to be getting all the documentation. So when that time comes, you'll make sure that you have it.
Yeah. And so this time, because on a second sale, because I only sold the accounts, I still have all of the records under my previous company. Those did not go to the new company. So it's a totally different setup. I'm still responsible for those bank accounts. I'm still responsible for all of that reporting with the IRS. And it takes a while to get all of that reporting done and to close out all of the books. In the first group, we had a 10 by 10 storage unit full of paper. When I moved and started over, everything is scan and shred, scan and shred. So we've got everything in the cloud, double backed up. So even if I would have decided to sell, the entire company this time instead of just the accounts, I could have in about 15 seconds downloaded all of the records that I could ever need all the way back to the day I started. And I would have had those going forward. So yeah, you live and learn, right? Lessons learned.
I think
Um,
hindsight's always 2020, right?
Hindsight's always 2020.
Yeah, and that's why we're
2020.
talking here because there's so many people that go into a transaction. People are selling and people that are buying. And 9 times out of 10, no one truly has their eyes open. And there's always something that happens like, oh, I wish I would have known. And I think documentation. And on the second one, when you say you sold the contracts in the state of Texas, because each state's different. In the state of Texas, are they assignable where you just have to, or do you have to write all new contracts?
Yeah,
Or do
you
you
have
not even, which
They are
way?
not assignable in the state of Texas as of today. They're not assignable.
Oh,
So
that just changed.
yeah, so it's a lot. It's a lot of work to transition all that over. Now, luckily, I'm here. I'm here with my entire team that was already here. They brought us on board, and when they brought us on board, they said, "Bring your whole team. Everybody that's there it stays with the team." So that's huge too. We had zero churn on the second time around
Ooh,
because
congrats.
there was no change to the clients and the customers. All we did was change the name on the door, really. And that's a really easy sell with clients. Hey, we're still here. I'm still here. My team's still here. All we're going to do is just change the name on the door, and then hopefully over time, we'll bring in more people to help out with the newer accounts. But there was quite a bit of churn the first time I sold. People were like, "Oh, Amy's not there anymore. We're gonna move
Hmm.
around,"
And
and
that hurts
churn
on the selling side.
Churn hurts. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to onboard properties and take over a company and then to lose them, months or years later is a huge amount of workload. So
It is. And that's, I think, when people sell, they have to take that into consideration. And then when people buy, they have to take that into consideration. Some people go in, oh, hey, I got this many doors. 9 times out of 10, you don't, because you have to realize when you're changing, unless the team's coming with you, because we've done a transaction where the team came and we got to keep like literally 90, I think 5%. It was huge. But I think if you're not keeping the team or the team's not there, then you're going to have a bigger churn. And I think you got to be cognizant of that.
yeah.
Now, what did you expect was going to happen versus what actually happened? And can you share some gaps? Like, what we're talking about, the eyes, we try to go in wide open, but what we envision and what actually happens, there's usually a gap. The first time, it sounds like it was the churn. Was there any gap on the second time? And it's a different circumstance, but even though you're still there, was there any gap?
On the second one, I haven't seen it yet, and maybe because it's a totally different experience. That may come to light in the next 3 or 4 years as I look to get closer to retirement. But I think something that we also didn't really anticipate on the first one was culture. And the culture of the owner and the culture of the company is huge. And a change in culture not only impacts your churn, it impacts your employees, it impacts your market, it impacts your reputation in the market as well. And so I didn't put enough um, I didn't spend enough time talking about that. And there were so many changes, and I know people are excited. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to buy this company. I'm so excited. I'm going to change this, and I'm going to change that. I'm going to change this, and I'm going to change that." But every
Mm.
time I turned around and they were changing, they changed things, um, and it resulted in more churn. And I think there was a little bit of animosity there with, well, Amy doesn't want to change it because it was her baby. She doesn't want to change it because it was her baby. Instead of she didn't want to change it because it worked. It worked really, really well. So sometimes change isn't great just to have changes. Changes are great to make improvements, and I think sometimes you've got to drill down in that. But the things that I have seen since then, and I've talked to, I don't know, hundreds of people about buying and selling just, for fun now to talk about the experience of it, is really looking at the culture. Does the culture fit? Because if it doesn't, I mean, the amount of work and the amount of heartache you have to overcome to try to make the culture fit, may not be worth it. It may not be worth, buying the doors versus, maybe
I
just
love,
growing
love,
organically.
I love, love, love you brought up culture. Because I don't think most companies, when they go in to buy, or people that are selling, do not look at that. And you are buying the culture. And so if you're going in and buying a company, your culture has to be big enough and strong enough to withstand the other company coming in. And if their culture is bad, then it can actually overtake yours if you're not careful. Other way around, right? And if you're selling, you have to look at how's their culture? Is it good? Because your team is so incredibly important because they are the ones that foster, have the relationships with the owners. And when you're selling, guess what? A lot of times the sell has a clawback, has some type
Mhm.
of governor that
Right?
says, hey, if you lose all the doors, I don't pay anything, which is crazy. But at the same time, if that team is not cultivated in a way and cared for in a way, and you start losing members and you I mean, you can just destroy the whole deal after the close without even realizing, without even trying,
Yeah.
you know?
And I think a lot of people that don't understand our business, they look at it like, hey, I want to buy 100 doors or 200 doors. They look at it like a widget. But
Mhm.
property management's not a widget.
No.
All we have is service. That's all we can provide to people is service, right? It's not my house. It's not my money. I'm just the one that's helping move the money between people and helping people find their housing. But at the end of the day, all I have to offer in my company is service. But when we do look at it from a buy-sell perspective, it's all about the numbers. How many doors do you have? How many owners do you have? What's your management fee? What's your ancillary fee? What's your revenue per unit? What's your how many staff member do you have? Are you portfolio? Are you departmental? At the end of the day, all we have is service. And so I
That
think that
relationship.
also makes it tough. People get really wide-eyed. Ooh, I want to buy 100 doors. I want to buy 200 doors. They get so excited about it. But a lot of times I think they treat it like a widget. It's not. It's not a widget.
It's people. And what you're buying is truly the people. Because I've done it both ways. And I can tell you, I've done it wrong too. Because what you talk about is culture. We've acquired before where the culture wasn't a good fit, and we had to turn over some people because it was toxic, it was bad, and the only way to even take care of the company and take care of the other people was to let go of some. And it was really incredibly sad because that wasn't our goal, but we didn't see the issue with the culture until after the close, and we're like,
Yeah.
whoa. And it was it was a big eye opener, like huge. And I think we've
Mhm.
all had those moments, but I think what people need to realize when they're going into acquisition, you're buying the team. Because if the team's strong, guess what? They will keep they will keep the owners. But if they're weak, you're going to struggle and you're going to churn more.
Yeah.
Another question: What would you have made? What would make it a perfect scenario? It sounds like you have it, to be honest. But if you had to describe any other perfect scenario, what would it be?
Well, hmm. I mean, it would be great to just be able to get one big fat check and walk away. But in both sales, we sold on time, on payments, and that's how most buyers prefer to buy as well. There are some buyers out there in the market that have, are able to and want to purchase just with, a huge check at the end of the day. But I think there's a benefit to doing it on time. There's a willingness of buyer and seller to work together to make sure that it can continue to move forward. Because you're talking about, this isn't something that happens in a month.
No,
It takes a year just to get to the point where you're ready to sign on the dotted line. And then it may be 2, 3, 4 years that you're going through a transition, a buyout, et cetera. And so planning for that up front is a big piece of it. So right now, I can't really think of anything major that I would say would be, make it any better than the way it is. People are like, why would you sell and still work there? This works for me. Maybe it doesn't work for everybody. This works for me. This gives me the opportunity to continue working, but I have my exit plan now. I don't have to worry about when I'm ready to turn off lights and go home. I can be done. So that was a big relief for me because I knew and I understood that this is not a business that you just turn off.
it's not.
Um, and didn't have a real, fun feeling about, oh, well, if I decided to sell, am I going to have to go out and find, 10 different buyers and try to put it out there on the market? And so for me, this worked out. And I think every one of these deals, and I've talked to tons of people that have bought and sold. All of them are different. They all have different nuances to it, and it has to work for the buyer and the seller.
It
It
does.
can't be all one or all the other. I don't see that working. There's really got to be some thinking about what the end in mind is first, right? To
Mhm.
steal that from Stephen Covey, but
I love it.
thinking about it, where do you want to be in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and because this is not something that happens quickly. I've had some people call over the years and they've said, hey, I want to retire. I want somebody to take over my doors. I'd like to be out of here in 30 days. Okay, that yeah, that's not going to happen. If your due diligence period is that short, something else is wrong.
Wrong.
Uh,
Yeah.
but but
So
yeah, I think people underestimate the amount of time that goes into making these deals happen and making sure that they're going to work. There's work after the sale. After that document gets signed, that's where the real work begins.
I agree. Oh my goodness, 100%. It happens. And I don't think people realize that. We've lost deals because we're very transparent about that. Because they're like, hey, someone told me they could close within 15 days. I'm like, "Yeah, good luck." And when they close and they churn all your owners, good luck there too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So I agree with you there. Now I have a question. One last question because we want to be respectful of time. But if you had any advice, especially in the market today, you see so many buyers coming out trying to acquire. You see so many people selling as well. I mean, it's both sides right now. What would be like the one piece of advice to help everybody that's going through this right now to help them be successful in selling or buying?
yeah. You can't do too much due diligence. You've really got to look behind the curtain and look into those financials and really dig deep into those financials. Make sure that what you're buying is truly representative in those numbers. Um, Also, I can't overemphasize culture. You've got to make sure it's the right cultural fit. Buying doors just to buy doors, it could be a complete nightmare. You could be setting yourself up for a huge failure. So, I would really spend a lot of time figuring out what is the culture? Is this really going to work? There's a huge opportunity for organic growth. Now, it takes work, but the long-term impacts of organic growth over buying doors, we know the churn is much, much higher on buying doors. So, I don't I would encourage people to look at what could you get with organic growth versus what you can get with buying doors. Does it make sense? And make sure that it's a good fit for the buyer and the seller, both before and after the sale. So I know that's a lot. That's a
No, but
whole,
I love that. And really what it says is open your eyes. Go
yeah,
100% and be transparent on both sides. And
yeah,
both people need to understand that it's going to take work. To make the deal successful, it's going to take work on both sides, not just one side, but both. Because you're dealing with so many different people. It's not just the buyer and seller. You're dealing with how many owners, how many residents. And especially if you just buy contracts, you're uploading in a new software. I mean, there's so many intricate parts here. And so I love that you brought that up, Amy. And I appreciate you coming on. I can see us having you on again because I think there's so many things we could still dig into because there's so many people that are wanting to buy and sell right now. So we appreciate it. Thank you so, so much for coming on today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in today to The Road Less Traveled. If you're organizing an event, workshop, or simply planning something exciting and would like to have Tiffany Rosenbaum join you or want to have her on your podcast, visit TiffanyMRosenbaum.com and click on Book Tiffany to get started.